every week when we come to these Dharma talks, what we're really doing is we are planting seeds of potential. Seeds of potential wisdom, of potential compassion. And I try every week to bring maybe a story and or a theme, something to really help us connect to the Dharma talk, to the seed of that Dharma talk, the seed that we are planting. So where we've done talks on you're exactly where you should be, even if it means you're in the hole, that's exactly where you should be in this moment. There's something for you to learn in this moment. There's something for you to see. And really that theme kind of helping plant that seed a little bit more firmly of visualizing the whole. And we did the story of the autobiography in 5 chapters. Or when we had the talk on this changing image, our perceptions that are always changing and our perceptions that are always creating this image of how we see ourselves. And that image that comes from our perceptions that are always changing. The image is changing moment by moment. Right? We love ourselves at 9 a.m. By 9:30, we hate ourselves. At 10 a.m., we're brilliant. We're on top of the world. By 10:30, we're a loser. Our life sucks because this perception, our perceptions are always changing. This image is always changing. And we use the analogy of these, of them just being like little soap bubbles. They're just poof. They come and they go. They come and they go. So fast. There's nothing to hold on to. Nothing to cling to there. Just let them go. And even the other week when we talked about, again, that image, right? But kind of seeing ourselves as this peaceful image now that we're a meditator, we're more spiritual, and wanting others to see us as this more peaceful spiritual person as well. And how ultimately disappointing that is when they don't see us that way. And of course, the suffering isn't because others don't see us that way. It's because we create some image of seeing ourselves, even as the peaceful, the image, the meditator, the spiritual practitioner. And so always in these talks, we're planting a seed, a Dharma seed, and I'm trying to do it in a way that the seed really takes hold. But the seed, like any seed, needs nutrients, it needs water, it needs sunlight, it needs care, right? It needs nurturing. And the way that we nurture our Dharma seeds, the way that we water our Dharma seeds and give them sunlight is primarily, right, through meditation, right? Kind of one of the best ways for us to water these seeds is through meditation. And while we're meditating, every day, we may not see a lot that's happening underneath, right? That these seeds, whether they're really being nurtured or not, but they are. They're slowly, kind of the meditation, giving the nutrients that are needed to the Dharma seeds, giving the water, giving the light. And then what we notice is that one day we'll be in our meditation, and maybe we're kind of lost in a thought about feeling excluded in some way. And we're kind of lost in that thought about I'm excluded and I'm unhappy. And we have that image, that little avatar of me unhappy. But then all of a sudden that Dharma seed ripens. And we remember that changing perception. Oh, it's just a thought created me. It's going to change. It's nothing, there's nothing substantial there. So the seed ripens and we all of a sudden we see it in that meditation. And we let go of the image and we come back to our breath or whatever our object of our attention is. And all of a sudden we maybe go into that deep samadhi because all of a sudden it's like, oh, I see, you have an insight. Or maybe you have a difficult person in your life. It could be a family member, it could be your partner, it could be a colleague, it could be your boss or a friend, or just someone that's kind of part of your group, someone that you see a lot, and you really find it difficult and challenging to be around them because we all have a difficult person somewhere in our lives. And you were given the instructions to do loving kindness meditation to help free you from the story of this person, of making it worse, of creating suffering, out of the situation. And maybe you do, you're doing the loving kindness and you do it 5, 6 times and you think, I still hate them. I still want them out of my life. Like it's not working. But actually something was happening in there. And so you get to the 7th loving kindness meditation and you get to the difficult person in that stage of the meditation. And all of a sudden, the story you've been telling yourself about them just falls apart, right? That you're saying they're arrogant or they're self-obsessed or they're conceited, whatever it is, the story that you're telling yourself, you all of a sudden start to see them as another human being. A human being that wants to be loved and accepted and included just like you. A human being that is who they are because of all of the causes and conditions that have been their life, that is making them up. And you realize it's not personal. So the talks, the Dharma talks that you'd listen to about loving kindness meditation, of why this meditation is so powerful at pulling the thread out of our story that binds us to our suffering, all of a sudden, and you've been doing the practice, and then all of a sudden it starts to sprout, right? This compassion and wisdom that arises in you, this insight. You see it because you were watering the seeds. You had the Dharma talk, you planted the seed, and then the meditation where you're nurturing the seed, you're giving the seed what it needs for it to be able to grow. And it's really important that when these insights start to grow, that we nurture also the little seedling that's just kind of come up above, that's just above the ground, coming into our awareness, helping us to let go of whatever it was that we were clinging to. It's really important that we nurture it because it's fragile. We know how it is when a big oak tree, but when it's just kind of coming out of the ground, it's still a flimsy little strand of, looks like grass or something, right? It's not very much. A bird could just easily come along and pluck it out. A big ego could easily come along and pluck it out. And so it's important that when we have these insights, that we nurture them, that if you've had a meditation and you really feel like the story of the difficult person falling away or some insight into this perception of who you think you are, and you kind of see it, right? You see it so clearly in that moment, to nurture it, to have some space on the other side of the meditation, to sit with it, not necessarily in meditation any longer, but maybe to contemplate, to go for a walk by yourself, really reflect on it. Wow, that was powerful. That was amazing. Journal about it, right? All of these ways to really help nurture the insight to keep growing, because now you've got to protect it once it starts growing. We also want to be careful not to share very often our insights, at least definitely not in the beginning, because we can turn that into a grasping, wanting, right? I want to share an insight with someone, and it can come out in a way that creates more grasping, or if it's not understood, and kind of the disappointment that, they don't see how powerful this is. So also recognizing new insights need to be kept to ourselves. That's an important part of nurturing them, of protecting them. And so there's a lot happening under the surface here, right? When we plant the Dharma seeds and we're meditating, there's a lot that is happening here. And for us to trust this process, even if we're not getting those deep insights yet, even if we're not seeing really the growth yet, it's happening there below the surface. So when we come to a Dharma talk, right, we're planting the seed. And I think it's important to also recognize when we come to a Dharma talk that to have balance with Dharma talks, kind of the Goldilocks rule, not too little, not too much. If we're always listening to Dharma talks, we end up with too many seeds. And for anyone who's gardened, if there's too many seeds in there, you're just crowding out, right? They can't all get through. If you're doing carrots or beets, you're going to get really, really, really thin carrots or beets, right? They need space. So not too much Dharma talks, not too little Dharma talks as well. We need the wisdom. We need the pointers. We need them. But if we're always listening to Dharma talks every day, if we're listening to Dharma talks when we're driving, when we're doing the dishes, when we're cleaning the house, and of course this does, if that is your only time to listen to Dharma talks, well, yeah, then of course when you can get them in, right? If it's the only time is in the car because you've got a lot of responsibilities, you've got young children, you've got you're going to school, you've got a job that requires a lot of your time. Of course, like when you can, right, just to get them in. I mean, everyone is a little bit different. But for those of us that have a little bit more time, a little bit more space in our schedule, I think it's really important that we understand taking the Dharma talk in and allowing that Dharma talk to settle, not going and just hitting the next one and the next one and the next one, because you're just crowding out the seeds in there. You're not going to there's not enough room for the insights to grow. And so being mindful, being very mindful of the amount of time that we spend on Dharma talks, they're essential. I think they are the seed. They are the seed that needs to be planted. But we have to be careful in the way that we're planting them. And then, of course, mindfulness, right? Being mindful throughout the day. And I think it would be really hard to be mindful without our meditation practice. So I think the meditation practice also is almost another seed being planted for being mindful. So, in mindfulness needing the Dharma talk, the pointers, what are you looking for, right? Needs the meditation, right? So that we're a little calmer, we're more centered, right? That those seeds are getting nurtured in there. And then also we need space. We need time in our day. If you have the conditions that it's possible, then to have more space in your day, to have more time where you can really be alone with your thoughts, right? Contemplating the Dharma is healthy, is good. Reflecting is healthy. Having time and space and not always being dialed into something, being distracted by some podcast or constant talking in our ear. We need that in order to be able to see what's going on, to slow down enough to be able to pay attention, to notice when we're driving to the store, when our mind has already gotten to the store, right? Noticing that, like, oh, right, if we're listening to a Dharma talk, we may not notice that, or a podcast, like, oh, but it's just interesting. It's like, okay, great. I mean, there is a point to how much information we really need. We also need to see. We need to pay attention. And so if we're driving to the store and we're not being distracted by anything, we notice that tension, that tightening that happens. It always comes with a tightening when the mind separates from the body, when the mind is already at the store, right? Noticing that, being mindful, oh, I see what's happening. I've heard this Dharma talk on this so many times now. The chasing, yes. And all of a sudden that seed, oh, it pops up. And you bring your attention back into the body. And you feel your hands on the steering wheel. And you look around and you're like, I'm here, I'm okay. I'm safe. There's nothing that's going to happen at the store that's going to make me more complete than I could possibly be right now. Right? But you see it so clearly, so that insight arises. Or if you're in a store and someone's maybe in front of you in line and they're being really difficult, maybe with the cashier, I don't know, something difficult's going on, they're having a tantrum, maybe you're at Starbucks, someone's order was wrong. And people are so stressed. It's amazing what it takes to push people over the edge today. Not much, because of all of their causes and conditions, how stressed they are. And when you're being mindful, right, you have the seed planted, your Dharma seed, you're meditating, and then you're slowing down, you're being more mindful as you're going about your day, and you see someone having this meltdown. And instead of judging them, your first response is compassion. You see beyond, it wasn't just that the coffee order was wrong. There must have been a million things that happened before this that pushed them to this. And your response is compassion. A seed of compassion is arising in that moment, is ripening in that moment. And this is what we need, is to see this. The mindfulness of seeing this, seeing how it's playing out, seeing how our mind is always rushing us to the next thing, or we're pushing back on something that isn't even happening. Or maybe it is happening, but it's like, it's happening. I can't stop this from happening. The car broke down, right? I'm not going to keep complaining about it. I'm going to take care of it. And I'm going to stay present, because this is part of life. This is part of living, right? The good and the bad, the pleasant and the unpleasant, the praise and the criticism, the gain and the loss. You're there for it all. So what we're doing here, we're learning to trust the process. We plant the seed. We nurture the seed, meditation and mindfulness. We nurture the insights. It's really important that we're nurturing the insights, that we know how to nurture the insights. And to also recognize that when we're coming to Dharma talks, everyone is at a different stage. And sometimes you might hear a talk that doesn't, there's something there, but you're like, but I don't quite even intellectually get it. I think a lot of the time in the beginning, there's a lot of intellectual understanding that's going on. We kind of get it about the comparing or the judging or the chasing, the resisting. We kind of get it intellectually, even though we walk out the door and we start comparing and judging and chasing, right? But intellectually, it makes sense. But then every now and then there's a teaching that comes along and it's like, I don't quite get that. I mean, I've kind of pushed us in many talks where I'm really trying to ask you to look to see how you are arising in each moment. That you're not a thing. That there's nothing independent or solid about you. That every one of us is a process arising in each moment based on causes and conditions, arising interdependent, interconnected. And for some, you can intellectually get that. And for others, you may just think like, I don't get that at all. I get the comparing, I get the judging. I don't get that. And that's okay. We're planting a seed. It's okay. So also, as you're walking your spiritual path, and you come across teachings sometimes that are a little bit, I don't want to say a little bit more advanced or a little bit more abstract, not as easy to get intellectually, trusting that a seed was planted, and it's okay that it's not really that clear. And it's okay also, of course, to ask questions and to try and understand it, but not with a grasping mind, right? Understanding, okay, well, that was a seed that was planted. Let me keep doing the process. Let me keep meditating. I'll keep coming on the Dharma talks each week. And for anything that I don't get, that's okay. You can just, okay, I didn't get that. A seed's been planted. I'm just going to stay the course, because we never know when these seeds ripen. We never know. And I think what's really good is that when we have a seed, even if it's something that we don't get, all of a sudden, again, you'll hear me say it in a different way, or you'll hear a different teacher say using a different example, talking about the same thing, but maybe just a different example that makes sense. And because you heard it before when it didn't make sense, all of a sudden it just ripens, that you can just hear it in a different way, and it just ripens in that moment. And so then you go to the nurturing stage again, remembering, oh, I've got to protect this insight. I've got to really make sure that it's that I stay close to it, that I don't just take it for granted. Don't ever assume. Do not ever assume. Oh, I got this all. I got this. I got it. That is just our ego setting us up to fall. Right? We always want to have a sense of humility and humbleness in our practice. Like, yes, what you've seen in your insights, fantastic. But always that little bit of like, okay, but let's see. Because there can always be old habits and patterns playing out, right? So always with this sense of humility and humbleness around our practice, and just trusting the process. Because you're not controlling this. You're not controlling the awakening process. You're not controlling any of this. I mean, that's the whole thing. You're not controlling, I'm not controlling any of this. It's happening. But we can do things that set the conditions to make sure that it happens, to make sure that it does happen. We don't know when it will happen. So what I offer, where a lot of people love coming on the Dharma talks, and thank you, Mary, I can see your comment there, thank you. We love hearing the Dharma talks. We love hearing about this, right? It's so fun. There's a real kind of openness there. I feel like there's a sense of freedom that we experience in the moment of hearing about the teachings or reading about the teachings. There's just such a letting go in that moment. But it's not our wisdom. It needs to be our wisdom to really, truly let go. To let go when someone's yelling at you. To let go when someone's talking badly about you behind your back. To let go when you can see someone has so much more than you and be happy for them, right? That requires wisdom. These seeds have to grow within us. And so I would imagine on Insight Timer, most of you are meditating fairly regularly. And I offer this up every now and then as a teaching if you're not meditating regularly, because that is the best compost for these seeds. Like that is the best nutrients that we can give, is our meditation practice. Any kind of meditation, by the way, any kind of meditation, whatever meditation you are willing to do is the best meditation. So any type of meditation. So if you can commit, if you're not meditating regularly, if you can commit 1 minute a day, 1 minute a day to meditating. The hardest part of having meditation as a daily practice, or the hardest part of meditating, is getting to the cushion or getting to the chair. That is the hardest part. And if we imagine that we've got to do a 20-minute meditation, a 30-minute meditation, an hour meditation, I mean, sometimes it's just like, oh, but I've got all these other things to do. And even though what we say we want more than anything is peace or joy or love or connection or awakening, right? In that moment, we start to skew our values and we go, no, I better clean out the garage, or no, I better go to the store. No, I better go do the laundry, right? All of a sudden, our meditation practice gets pushed way down. But if we tell ourselves, I'm just going to do 1 minute. I just have to do 1 minute. Then you can get to the cushion much easier. It is so much easier to get there when you tell yourself, I'm just going to do 1 minute. And of course, and especially on Insight Timer, so all of you have the Insight Timer app. And the reason, in fact, I've been recommending this app for about 9 years. I only just in the last year started putting my teachings up, and in the last 6 months doing live events on here. I didn't even know all this other stuff was going on, but I was recommending to everyone, like use the app for the timer bell. And there's an interval bell in there. So you can have that set for 1 minute and have a 20-minute meditation set or a 10-minute meditation set. And when that 1 minute goes off, you can get up. No problem. You did 1 minute. No problem. But you are more likely to sit for a few more minutes, because the hardest part is just getting yourself to the seat. That is the most difficult part. But so much of our practice rests on the meditation. We have the Dharma seeds, we have them come in, right, through the talks. But the meditation is where we're nurturing it. And without the meditation, I would think it is very, very hard to be mindful throughout the day. It's just going to be very hard to have any of these seeds really develop into anything. I'm not saying impossible, but it would be very, very hard. So our meditation practice being so important here. And if we can just commit to 1 minute a day, just 1 minute, even if you don't have time to grab the app, you've been traveling all day, you're just sitting on the toilet, just close your eyes and for 1 minute breathe, right? Just kind of guess what a minute is. I mean, great. Now you're keeping the consistency of your practice going. And what I find in doing it this way, because you do have the consistency, we don't have those big backslides where you're doing really well for 3 or 4 months, and then all of a sudden I forgot to do it today, and I forgot to do it yesterday, so I'll start next week, right? That's what we tell ourselves. And then we forget when next week comes, and then it's like, oh man, it's been 2 weeks, it's been 3 weeks. Yeah, I got to get back to it, right? And so we're losing all of that time. All of those seeds from all those Dharma talks that are in there are wilting. They want to come out. They want to be the wisdom and compassion that we want. But we're not nurturing them. We're not giving them what they need. But if we can do 1 minute, even 1 minute of nurturing these seeds a day is doing something. And I would argue that on most of those days, or at least on many of those days, you probably end up sitting maybe for 4 minutes, for 5 minutes. And then you also really do recognize that how much better you feel throughout the day because you are meditating regularly. Even just 1 minute, right? You feel better because you're a little bit, even that 1 minute of centering yourself, of calming yourself, of remembering the peace that is here, helps you as you go about your day, right? And so then as you increase and you maybe go to 5 minutes to 10, I mean, always just the 1 minute minimal. Don't ever make the minimum, should never go above 1 minute. The hardest part is getting to the mat. Anything we can do for 1 minute, anything, almost anything. Couldn't do pull-ups for 1 minute, but right, we could sit and meditate for a minute. So always make sure that's the minimum. But as you're then realizing, no, but I'm actually sitting for 10 minutes fairly regularly, and then you can bump it up to 12 minutes, to 15 minutes, like keeping in mind what's doable within your day, right? What's appropriate given your schedule. Everyone's schedule is a little bit different. So remembering, though, what the process is. Remembering and trusting the process. Even though some meditations, it doesn't seem like a whole lot was going on. You're thinking, my mind was just going back and forth like a ping pong the whole time. Surely I wasn't watering any seeds then. Absolutely. You were doing the best watering of your life in that moment. Because in those meditations, the fact that you even just sat there with it, even for a minute, right? You are willing to sit with that which is uncomfortable. Yes, you are watering the seeds. So the Dharma seeds, they are the potential for wisdom and compassion, for insights. The meditation nurtures them, right? Mindfulness nurtures them. And then when those seeds come out, you've got to make sure that you nurture them as well. We've got to make sure that the insights get the attention they deserve as well. Don't let them wither once they've arisen. And just to keep sticking with it, because we never know when the insights are going to come. We never know when the big insights are going to come. We never know when the little insights are going to come, because we're not controlling this, but we are setting the conditions. And if we know how to set the conditions properly, then I guarantee you, I can't guarantee you when they will happen, but they will happen. The insights will come.